guys, welcome back to my channel. Today is like the only day I had sunlight. For the past few days there hasn't been any sun. It's been raining this past week, and so I finally can film because it is a little bit cloudy. If the lighting changes, I apologize. I cannot control the light. I hope I can, but I couldn't. I have a glass of matcha with me, and we're gonna start this tag. This is a book recommendations tag. I've seen it circling around YouTube, and I just wanted to do my own version of it because I actually have yet to do any book related videos. I've only done one, which is the reading vlog on Chain of Thorns that I did, but I wanted to do something where you can see kind of the things that I read. I thought this would be great to show what kind of reader I am, the books that I read, all that kind of stuff. I will leave all the questions down below. I do not take any credit for the questions that are on this tag. First question is a book that you tell people are your favorite. So I am not the biggest fan of it myself, but because I read this a really long time ago, and obviously I loved it when I read it when I was young, City of Bones. This whole series I counted as a book, but I did tell a lot of people back in the days that this was my favorite book of all time. I loved Cassandra Clare's writing. I just loved everything about it. I did read this when I was like 14 or 15 up until now, because I have yet to reread it from when I was 15 years old. I still tell people that I love the series, and then I reread it like a few days ago and I realized that's why not all people like it now. I understand where they're coming from. If you guys don't know, City of Bones, The Mortal Instruments is about shadowhunters, and this is the first shadowhunters book in a full-fledged series. You guys can see it behind me. I have all of the Shadowhunter books here. Mortal Instruments is the first series that was released by Cassandra Clare. Shadowhunters are demon-slaying Nephilim, so they're half human, half angel. And this one talks about Jace and Clary. She was first introduced to the world of Shadowhunters when she met Jace, Alec, and Isabel in a club called the Pandemonium. She saw them killing a demon. Mundanes are basically normal humans. To Mundane's eyes, you cannot see them because they are able to glamour themselves and hide themselves from the naked eye of humans, but Clary, who has the sight, was able to see them, and she was introduced to this world as a shadow hunter, and then she realized she was a shadow hunter. She realized her mom was a shadow hunter, and then we go on this journey, follow their romance, you follow a little bit of weirdness with their romance. This is The Mortal Instruments, and I freaking loved it when I was young, so I would say that yes, this book I did tell a lot of people was my favorite. Second question is a book that is your guilty pleasure. So guilty pleasures are books that you like enjoy reading, but you don't necessarily like tell people that you read it because it is maybe a little bit controversial, or there are topics that you just don't want people to know that you're reading. So my guilty pleasure is actually a Kindle read, and it is the Red Zone Rivals. I like every single book from this series, but I've yet to read Hail Mary because it just came out this year. This whole series is by Candy Steiner. It is a football romance, and they're all actually standalones, but it is so much better if you read them all because they just follow these football players and their romances. And my favorite one is The Blind Side, but I think everyone's favorite one is Blind Side because Clay Johnson. And the only reason why I say this is my guilty pleasure is because it's really spicy, and I don't tell people that I read spicy books, but I guess it's out now, so surprise. I love every single character of the series. I love their romances, especially Blind Side. You guys should read it if you have yet to read it. I am planning to reread this series once I get their paperbacks, but because they're an indie book and I live in Asia, it's so difficult to get indie books here. Third is a book that everyone liked but you didn't. So for me, it is very easy. Like, even the cover is not that good, but it's The Hating Game. I did buy this in a yard sale, so that's why I have the cover with the movie poster in front, but I thought I would just buy it because it was really cheap. And when I first bought this is when I dove back into reading after a long period of not reading. I thought it would like be good because a lot of people said it was good, but I hated it. This is supposed to be an enemies to lovers, but I don't see the enemies part of it. Plot was boring, I didn't like it, so this is the one book that everyone I think loves but I don't like. Next is a book you read the fastest, The Cheat Sheet by Sarah Adams. This is pretty thin and it's only like 302 pages, but I thought it was an easy read. It's very simple, it's very cute, closed door romance if you're interested in that. This is a friends to lovers type of romance book. Bree and Nathan are friends. Bree has a crush on Nathan for as long as she can remember. What she doesn't know is that Nathan also has a crush on her, so they're just like pining for each other but never really getting there because they're scared of ruining the friendship. And then one day something happens and they end up having to fake date. Yeah, I think I read this pretty quickly. I think I read it in a day. A book that deserves more hype. What to Say Next by Jolie Buxbaum. This book I have never heard anyone talk about, but I found this in a yard sale. I thought this would be really fun and really cute. The blurb at the back, it doesn't really tell you anything about the story, and when I bought this book it was sealed, so I wasn't able to see like the little synopsis at the front of the book. I like went into this blind, and it turned out to be one of the most wholesome reads I've ever read in the year of 2022. This book is about two teenagers, Kit and David. Kit just went through a traumatic experience. Her dad passed away in a car crash, and she's trying to figure out why her dad passed away. In comes David. So David is actually on the autism spectrum. They ended up being friends, and Kit is actually a popular girl in school, while David is socially isolated because of his autism. But they ended up sparking a friendship, and David decides to help Kit with figuring out why her dad died in the car crash. But what I really liked about this book was the interactions between the two characters. I have never read anything about characters being in the autism spectrum. Obviously, I do know that The Kiss Quotient by Helen Huang, which is also like somewhere here at the back, the female main character, she has Asperger's syndrome, as I remember, but I felt like this one was more realistic. This book is dual POV, but the way the author was able to kind of change the character's voice, make it seem like it's two different people writing the story, was just baffling to me. It really talked about growth, especially on David's portion because of his autism and how he makes friends. Maybe it's not like the romance that you're finding or the rom-com that you're finding, but it is definitely wholesome, it's definitely cute, and I definitely recommend this to everybody. A book that is becoming a movie or a TV show. So I don't actually, like at first I really didn't know what, but Siege and Storm, it's coming out. The season 2 of Shadow and Bone is coming out, and we're gonna talk about Siege and Storm. This is the sequel to Shadow and Bone, the trilogy, and very, very hard to explain what it's about because I don't want to spoil the first book. A book that you have reread the most. I'm actually not a fan of rereading, so I don't have a book that I've reread like 3 times. But I do have one book I reread twice, which is basically the most that I've reread a book, and that is The Infernal Devices by Cassandra Clare. So this is also a part of the Shadowhunters world, and this is the second series that came out after The Mortal Instruments. The Mortal Instruments happened in the year 2000s, I think. Infernal Devices, this is in the year 1800s, if I'm not wrong. So Tessa Gray, she is a downworlder. Downworlders are warlocks, vampires, werewolves, fairies, all of those little creatures, and she is a downworlder who has a very special power, and that is shapeshifting into anyone that she wants to be. She got caught and then she escaped because those people wanted to use her powers for the bad, found refuge in the London Institute where Shadowhunters reside, and there she meets Will and Jem, two Shadowhunters that I love. They're the best male characters I've ever read. If I said bad things about Immoral Instruments, I cannot say anything bad about The Infernal Devices. It's a really good book. They did love triangles the best, and I hate love triangles, but this love triangle I consumed, so I recommend this book. It is 6 stars for me. It's amazing. I love this book so much. A book from a genre you don't typically read. We have this book. It is called Illuminae. It is by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. So I read this book a really long time as well, maybe when I was 17 or 18. This is actually a sci-fi book, and it's the only sci-fi book I own. If you ask me what this is about, I have no idea. I'm gonna try to put like some sort of blurb in here because I don't know what it's about. I actually remember loving this book because the way they storytell is by using these little like technology stuff. Look, like chatting histories, emails, and like system messages. I thought this was so cool. The way they did this whole storytelling situation with a sci-fi book was so cool. If you guys want to like dive into a new genre and you want to dive into sci-fi, I feel like this is a very easy book to read. So I do recommend this book. This is called Illuminate. Next question, a book that deserves all the hype it gets. Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. I just read this book in February and I loved it. This was 5 stars for me. This talks about Alexis and Daniel. Alexis is a doctor who lives in the city. She is rich because she comes from a line of doctors as well, like her parents are doctors. And then comes Daniel, lives in a suburban little town, and they happened to meet coincidentally. They had a little fling, and then Alexis the next day went back to her normal life. But she found herself kind of gravitating towards Daniel and Daniel's life in the small town, and then a romance starts to bloom from there. One thing I loved about this book is that even though they have an age gap, Alexis is older than Daniel by 10 years, but they don't really emphasize about the age gap at all. And even though I know that they have an age gap, I just don't feel like it's an important part of this story. Truly, age doesn't really matter if you're in love with someone. I also loved the insights that she had. I could kind of relate to her in a lot of ways, and that really tugged at my heartstrings, and that's why I love this book so much more. Please go and read Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. A book I usually recommend when asked to give a recommendation. We have The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. I recommend this book for many reasons. First, because it is a very easy read, has very short chapters, so you don't feel like you're getting dragged on and on. Second, it's fast paced as heck. I flew through this book, and this was such a fast read that I think anyone who has a hard time reading or wants to get to reading will definitely be able to read this pretty easily. The writing is very simple, but it just grips you. Like, the story is just so compelling. Lastly, I am not much of a mystery reader myself, but this book was just so good. Couldn't put it down. I loved the love triangle here as well. The love triangle here was also chef's kiss. It was also really good, comparable to Infernal Devices. That's really hard for me to say. If you guys are new readers and you want to get into a book that is very quick and easy to read, The Inheritance Games. It's also not that thick, so. A book that has your favorite characters. I also just read this book, but this is Sorcery of Thorns by Margaret Rogerson. Oh my gosh. This talks about Elizabeth and Nathaniel. Oh my gosh. I like freaking love Nathaniel. He's like very close to my ideal type in terms of personality. Kind of like dry humor, sarcastic. Elizabeth is such a strong person, and I love that Nathaniel pushes her to become better. But honestly, the reason why I chose this book in the first place has to go to Silas, and you gotta read the book to know who Silas is. I'm not gonna spoil anything because they don't actually explain it. He's my favorite character in this book. I cried so much from reading him, so please grab Sorcery of Thorns. Next question is a book you wish you could live in, and honestly I would live in all of the Shadowhunter worlds, but specifically in what year? This year, the Last Hour series. I just finished reading this book, and that's why I'm gonna pick this as the one I want to live in, because the 1900s in London, the architecture, the way Cassandra Clare explained all the scenes, clothing, the music. I picked the Last Hour series, but in general, just having Shadowhunters in my world, I can be mundane, but please, like, let me be a mundane that has sight so I can see all the Shadowhunters in this world. The Last Hour series is the 4th series that was released in the Shadowhunters world. The second one is the Infernal Devices, and then the third one is the Dark Artifices, which is right behind me here. This is the 4th one. It was just released 2020, so it's the most recent one. It talks about Cordelia Carstairs. She is a shadow hunter, and she has always been in love with James Herondale. James Herondale is Will Herondale's kid. I don't want to say much as well, because if I say too much, I feel like I'm gonna spoil the Infernal Devices. You gotta read the Infernal Devices before you read this, or you're gonna get spoiled by everything that happened in the Infernal Devices. A book you thought you would hate but ended up loving. Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. This was just way too hype. That's why I thought I wouldn't like it. And honestly, this along with The Hating Game were one of the few books that I grabbed when I first started coming back into reading, because I saw this in TikTok a lot and it was all over my bookstores. I thought I would hate it because I don't really like hype books that much, but this book was so good. I didn't give it 5 stars because there were a few things I didn't like. But if you don't know what the Love Hypothesis is about, you are living under a rock. I liked it. I liked the fake dating. I thought the fake dating seemed a little bit more realistic than most fake dating books. The character, who's her name? Olive. I liked Olive as a character. I thought she was smart and cute. But yeah, this is the love hypothesis. Second to last question, a book that made you cry. I know it's like from the same series as Chain of Gold, but this is the last book of the trilogy, and if you want to know why I cried, you gotta read the book first and then you can check out my reading vlog. I cried a lot in this book. Please go and read the Last Hour series. Look at my annotations. Guys, if this doesn't tell you to go and read this series, what will? The last question is a book you wish you could read for the first time. I decided not to pick anything for this part because every single book I gave 5 stars. I wish to read. I wish to read The Last Hour series for the first time. I wish to read The Infernal Device for the first time. I wish to read Sorcery of Thorns for the first time. I wish to read The Inheritance Games for the first time. Any book I recommended in this video, I wish to read for the first time. We have come to the end of this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. This has been long. I feel like I talked and rambled too much. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Also click the like button so I know you guys like this kind of videos. Comment down below what books you would recommend to me. I would definitely love to read your recommendations. I am going to go to a bookstore very soon, so I do want to get new books. And yeah, that is it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!